Here's Ryan Rishaug, our Edmonton Oilers reporter, on the ice in South Florida. Ryan, you were in that dressing room when a lot of those clips were heard, and you know, obviously you can understand how gutted this team must be. Just take us inside the room. Tell us about some of the emotions these players are feeling right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's about what you would expect, right? This has been a long journey, and it's been extremely emotional for this group. You think of the roller coaster ups and downs from, Jay, everybody came to training camp a month early to get ready for this season. And then it was a train wreck to get going. So there's the first crash. Then the high of pulling it out of the ditch. You know, they were one of the better teams through the rest of the regular season. And some highs and lows through the playoffs, having to face elimination. The low of losing 3 straight games in the Stanley Cup final and feeling it slip through their fingers. The elation of coming back. And I talked to these guys. They felt right up until the last minute, Jay, they still believed. So when the buzzer went, it hit them like a ton of bricks. And when we were doing that media availability, like you'd expect, it was tough. They were pretty emotional. You could see the emotion on the guys on the ice too. Just stunned, Jay, because they were in this thing right to the end, and it wasn't until the buzzer went that I think it hit them. Oh boy, they came up short.
You know, Connor McDavid wins the Conn Smythe. I don't think there's any doubt that he deserved it. But in Game 7, you know, James and the guys talked about it. You're maybe expecting another 4-point night. It just doesn't happen. Florida defensively terrific. And then Leon Draisaitl had his chances, couldn't convert. Do you see it, Ryan? Because you cover this team so closely, did you see it as the 2 superstars running out of gas? And that would be understandable. Or was it just what Florida was able to do defensively in Game 7?
Probably both, honestly, Jay. Like, we saw that last minute where they had the goalie out, and really there was not much there. I mean, that's not the Edmonton Oilers, man. When they're fully charged and pushing for a tying goal, they know how to create offense. They know how to generate chances. There was nothing in their legs. Had a hard time gaining the zone. Had a hard time getting anything done in those last critical moments. You could see the exhaustion on all of these players as they were just trying to fight their way through. But give credit to the Florida Panthers, man. They did a great job against 2 of the best players in the world. On more nights in this series, they had the advantage. They were able to shut these guys down. And look, they weren't going to get into injuries with us. I believe in a couple of days here, we'll probably hear about what Leon Draisaitl specifically was battling his way through. Jay, no goals in 9 games for Leon Draisaitl. Same for Evan Bouchard. You know, too many of these offensive players went dry for too long here. And the Florida Panthers definitely deserve some credit for that. They did an amazing job on most nights. And it just goes to show you it can't be all about the superstars. On a lot of nights, it was the Oiler depth helping them get through this. But on this, the biggest night, their 2 biggest guns came up short.
Ryan, you know, you mentioned Leon Draisaitl, and you mentioned, you know, potentially we'll find out if he was injured or not. But one thing that's looming, of course, is his contract situation. He'll be an unrestricted free agent after next season. Lots to talk about that. And then maybe even more than that, Ryan, the fact that this team technically will not have a GM after this season. Kenny Holland moving on. Can you talk about next steps or what's next for this organization, Ryan?
Yeah, and normally you'd maybe give it a day to breathe or so, Jay, before we dove into all this stuff, but that's the schedule, man. The draft is sitting there. Free agency is sitting there. The Oilers are already behind the 8 ball compared to all the other teams. The Panthers, too, by the way, because they haven't been able to be negotiating with their unrestricted free agents. You're not going to do that during a Stanley Cup final. So there's a tremendous amount of work to be done. You mentioned Leon Draisaitl. Listen, they can start negotiating with him. My understanding is that's going to start very soon. They have not had any significant talks yet. You know, my understanding is Draisaitl is open to extending in Edmonton. It's not a guarantee at this point. You know, Jay, the question will come up if he doesn't do a long-term deal, do the Oilers need to consider moving him, which is kind of mind-blowing to think of that possibility so close to this result. I believe that the Oilers are willing to go into the last year of Draisaitl's deal and not necessarily feel they need to move him. But again, these are critical decisions, and they don't have a GM in place. And while Jeff Jackson has his hands firmly on the wheel, you have to think that there's some machinations happening somewhere to put a general manager in place. Because as of right now, I don't know if it's a guarantee they'll have one at the draft table, and certainly when free agency opens. There's a lot for this team to get done, a lot of big decisions, and a couple of them shape the future of this organization in a lot of ways, Jay.